Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure today to make two reports on performance and financial reporting public, which I recently issued to the Legislative Assembly. The first deals with the annual reporting by ministries, portfolios, and offices for the years ending 30th of June 2011 and 2012, and the second, the annual reporting by statutory authorities and government companies for the year ending 30th of June 2012. These reports are focused on the financial reporting across individual entities within the public sector, and not the government's consolidated financial statements or entire public sector statements on which I intend to report in the future. I have with me today Martin Rubin, an audit principal with the Office of the Auditor General, and I would like to start by making some brief comments, which will be followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions about the reports. As I have said on many occasions previously, timely, accurate, and reliable financial information is a fundamental component in ensuring the effective governance and accountability of government and public entities. Without this information, the decision-making of the Legislative Assembly, the government, and public bodies is compromised, as legislators and officials cannot make informed decisions regarding the allocation of resources and effectively the managed resources at their disposal. Furthermore, the government and public bodies cannot be held accountable for how they have used public money. We have continually seen that the government is able to present annual budget documents in a timely manner to ensure that they are able to have the legal authority to spend public money, but then struggle to account effectively for the use of that money to the Legislative Assembly and the wider public. As the Auditor General of the Cayman Islands, my duty is to hold government to account for the use of public resources and encourage more effective management of those public resources. Without the completion of the accountability cycle, with government and the wider public sector reporting timely and reliable information to the Legislative Assembly and the wider public, accountability for the use of public money is undermined. In these reports, my clear overriding message is that I continue to see improvement in the timeliness and the quality of the information being presented for audit, but there is still much more work that needs to be done in order to restore accountability for the use of public funds as envisioned in the Public Management and Finance Law. An increasing number of entities provided financial statements and supporting information which had improved quality and reliability, as is evidenced by the reduction in the number of qualified audit reports I issued, which in turn improved timeliness. However, the picture was varied, and there were certain entities that still struggled to provide information that was auditable. Within core government, I would highlight two ministries: Tourism and Development and District Administration, Works, Land and Agriculture, where my auditors were unable to carry out their required audit work because of poor controls and record keeping, and where I have highlighted a litany of issues that underlined the need for more competent financial managers and for them to comply with the PMFL. The government has informed us that they have taken action to address these issues, the impact of which we will assess in future reports. The efficient and effective production of reliable and credible financial information is predicated on a sound governance and control framework which provides management with assurance regarding effectiveness and efficiency of operations, the safeguarding of public assets, reliability of information and financial reports, and compliance with relevant laws and authorities. Arising from our audits, we found significant weaknesses in governance and control frameworks in a number of entities, leading to an increased risk of error, fraud, mismanagement, and abuse of public funds across the public sector. Whilst a number of these issues did not lead to the financial statements of entities being qualified, it is clear that they have had a negative impact on the ability of some entities to prepare reliable financial statements and also ensure the efficient and effective use of public resources. The final link in the accountability chain for the use of public resources that starts with the approval of the budget in the Legislative Assembly is the tabling of each entity's annual report, including their financial statements in the Legislative Assembly, at which time they become public documents. In my report, I highlighted many instances the government has not tabled the completed financial reports in the Legislative Assembly in a timely manner once the audits have been completed. When they have been tabled, many do not include information on their performance as required by the PMFL. A number of the completed reports have languished for more than a year since they have been completed. For example, I note that there are still 10 annual reports for 2010-11 and another 14 for 2011-12 that have not been tabled in the Legislative Assembly and are thus not publicly available. By not tabling reports in the Legislative Assembly, legislators and the public are not informed about the use of public funds in a manner that promotes accountability and transparency. And it also undermines the hard work that does take place to make financial reporting statutory deadline for an increasing number of entities. Finally, I would highlight for the first time, I have used these reports to comment on the financial performance of entities I have audited. With respect to ministries, portfolios, and offices, I've highlighted some deficiencies in the current financial reporting framework, which in my view effectively obscures accountability and transparency in the use of public resources and for the expenditures authorised by the Legislative Assembly. I have indicated to government that it needs to consider whether the financial reporting required for these entities provides clear accountability for the use of public resources, in particular in respect of compliance with the financial limits set by the Legislative Assembly through the annual appropriations law. For the statutory authorities and government companies, the report provides a mixed picture in terms of financial performance. 10 entities reported a deficit for the year ending 30th of June 2012, with at least 6 of them under significant financial strain and having challenges in meeting their current obligations. This has and will continue to be the case in most instances without changes in operations, business restructuring, or continuing government support. For a number of others, whilst not having immediate challenges in meeting their obligations, there are warning signs of potential future challenges if action is not taken to address them in the short to medium term. In conclusion, I would reiterate that I have continued to see progress and positive developments in the reporting of financial results. However, this is tempered by the reality there is still lots of work to be done and improvements made to achieve accountability as envisioned in the PMFL and which should be expected by citizens. Restoring financial accountability needs to be a priority for government. After reporting annually on government's progress for the last 4 years as Auditor General of the Cayman Islands, I believe that the government needs to do more to achieve this objective in a timely manner. A greater and more concerted effort is also needed to address the underlying issues raised in my reports concerning weaknesses in governance and control frameworks. Thank you for your attention, and I will now take questions about the reports.
Good morning, gentlemen. Wendy from Cayman News Service. As you say, for 4 years now, you've been giving us an update on general financial reporting. We've all been to the Public Accounts Committee and watched the constant, all of the work that's gone into to try and get this right. You have said time and time again that there is, it's mismanagement, incompetence, potential abuse, and you say it almost every year. Mm-hmm. So, what makes you think that there's going to be any change?
I think that you have to recognise that there has been some improvement and that there have been efforts made to move things forward. I think my message is that there has to be more, and there has to be more concerted effort to address these issues, and also to address the underlying issues around the control environments and the governance arrangements, which ultimately impact on their ability to produce reliable and timely financial statements. I'm also hopeful now that we will see some action in terms of the PAC potentially calling them on a regular basis to review their progress, and particularly the deficient, those entities that are struggling more than others. So, I think we have to recognise there has been progress. It's probably not as quick as I would like to see, and that's the major issue from my perspective.
Sorry, I just wanted to follow up because obviously you've been a little bit more direct in this report where you have pointed to incompetence and specific personnel. There's obviously people in jobs that they can't do the job. At what point do you think government is going to respond to that and move people?
Well, I highlighted 2 entities, and I think they have taken action to try and address the issues that you talk about there, Wendy. I have to say we will have to wait and see the results of that. We haven't audited or haven't seen the evidence yet, or haven't reviewed what those changes, the impact those changes have had. So we'll see in due course whether that has had the desired impact.
Ralph Lewis Employment Weekly. Being a leading financial center, have you received a sense of concern from the private sector, from those experts in the financial field?
Pardon, can you repeat that again, please?
Yes,
Ralph?
being a leading financial center,
Yeah.
have you in your position got a sense of concern from the private sector in regard to our position? Because I'm hearing this over and over again, year after year.
The concerns of the private sector in relation to this. I think it's an important issue as a major financial center. You need to have strong governance and control environments to be able to have those systems in place. That industry here, and they rely on that for compliance with international laws and regulations and treaties. And I think it's beholden on a government of such a country to have a first-class financial reporting and be able to lead the way and show lead by example in terms of these issues, and have the governance and control frameworks in place that match the first world financial services that you have.
One final question: would this kind of report affect the government's credit rating?
Uh, I I don't think so. Is my brutal honesty. I think the rating agencies look at a number of factors, and they've hasn't had an impact on their credit rating previously. But that's not to say that it couldn't in the future. But it hasn't so far.
It seems like these reports are two-pronged in a sense. We have civil servants who may not be doing the job properly. You point to those two ministries in particular where you call it poor controls and record keeping and the need for more competent financial managers. But also there seems to be another arm concerning the legislators who are not tabling the reports. Are you calling out the elected officials for not tabling those reports?
Well, I'm not calling the legislators specifically because they rely on their civil servants as well to be able to bring those reports and get them tabled. I'm not quite sure where the breakdown is, I have to be honest, in terms of this. But the reality is that we are seeing significant delays between the completion of audits and the reports being signed and then being tabled in the Legislative Assembly. Quite a number are taking over a year. We've seen examples of over 2 years before they're actually tabled in the Legislative Assembly. And these documents don't become public until they're tabled in the Legislative Assembly. So, it's all well and good putting all this effort into getting them completed and signed off, but if you don't table them, accountability is still not achieved because nobody can see the results.
Let me make sure I understand this perfectly. The reports are completed, but they're not being signed off on. And who's
The reports are signed by the opinion is signed by myself and by the ministry have signed off their statement of responsibility. But then it's taking over a year in quite a few instances before they're actually tabled in the Legislative Assembly.
would that be the legislators then responsible?
The civil servants have to take them to cabinet, and whether that's happening is another question. And then the cabinet then the minister has to lay them in the House. So I think there's potential issues in various stages here.
So something's happening between the signing off and it going to cabinet.
Or nothing's happening, as the case may be.
Just sifting through some of the meat and potatoes, gentlemen, of this, and there's a lot of numbers. In terms of the statement of financial positions, obviously a lot to go through, and I'm not going to point out any one. Just curious, Mr. Swarbrick, if there was anything at all during all of this, or Ruben, that really alarmed you or concerned you in sifting through some of the...
Which we do look at the statutory authorities and government companies.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything that's alarmed me that we haven't heard before. I think you know the entities where there's significant issues,
Right,
which need to be addressed, and they've got a lot of them are highlighted in the EY report that we see now as well. And I don't think there's anything particularly that's sort of huge.
No surprises.
No particular surprises around some of the entities.
That's all I had.
Gentlemen, when you turn to the consolidated accounts that we've been told, I think it's 3 years ongoing now that we keep getting told by government that they're up to date and they're going to get this thing done. one of the things that you've talked about in the report is the failure for them to actually do what the parts of the report that the man in the street can understand. So they do the financials, but they don't do the actual reporting bit that explains where the money went.
Yeah.
When we eventually see a consolidated account, will we get some explanation, or will we just be looking at figures that are meaningless to most people in the street
Right.
unless they're a qualified accountant?
Well, and the ones they have started to produce a sort of annual report in front of the EPS. We've we've signed off on the 3 years from 2008-9 to 2010-11 now, and I think the 2010-11 had an annual report which talks about the results. I know the draft of 2011-12 certainly does. So they are looking to do that. I wouldn't want to say anything about the quality of that at this stage, but that is something that they're trying to do.
I suppose to make it clear, it would be when do you think the public will know what government does with its money?
I could give you what I hope for, but then I have to be honest. I think that I don't want to be able to I don't want to comment on that just at this moment in time. I think that's a challenge. I'm hopeful that we'll get something for next year, but and that's what we're planning to do. But we need to wait and see. I would say one thing about that actually. For the first time, we've got a plan from the Ministry of Finance to actually how they're going to address the EPS and drive it forward, which is a significant first step from my perspective, and something that we've actually been calling for since I arrived, and probably before I arrived. So at least 4 years, a plan about how they're going to move the EPS forward and address the issues, and actually get something that's auditable and provides accountability to the public and to the legislature.
Any other questions? Well, there being no further questions, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today and appreciate your the type of questions that were asked. That ends our formal press conference for today. Thank you very much.